What I'd like to talk about for a few moments here, and then we'll take your questions and questions from the audience. Well, first, why am I here? How did I get invited? And obviously, it was probably through the notoriety of that show. But I started out as a reasonably normal person, and I graduated law school and then went to work for Bobby Kennedy, and then after he died, I started practicing law, but I was active in the anti-war movement and the civil rights movement, so I ran for Congress. And then I was for 10 years city councilman and mayor of Cincinnati, and then NBC came to me and said, "You've been the mayor of this city, would you anchor our news?" So I did that for 10 years. And I was anchoring the news. The company that owned the station where I did the news, they one day they took me to lunch, and they own talk shows. They own Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, and they said, "Phil's getting close to retiring. We're going to start a new talk show, and you're the host." So I was assigned to it. This is nothing I ever thought about doing. It's nothing I auditioned for. I was an employee, and that was my new assignment. And then, of course, it took off, and I just hope hell isn't that hot. I'm very light complected. I burn easily. Why did the show become popular? I mean, what is its possible attraction? And the truthful answer, not necessarily the conventional wisdom, but the truthful answer is we are all social beings. That you could have had a talk show 2,000 years ago if we had had television. People have always been talking about what their neighbors are doing, what's going on in their own lives. It used to be you would gather in the town square, in the marketplace, and you talk about what was going on in the next village or what your neighbors were doing, and you'd gossip about that, and you'd be amazed about that. If we have television 2,000 years from now, we'll still have talk shows. Human beings are always interested in what other human beings are doing. That makes us different than animals. We're social. So that's the popularity of it. Then what was this enormous criticism about the show? And I always was the first to say, look, the show's stupid. And I mean, I wouldn't watch it. But I mean, in fairness, it's not aimed at what is now 75-year-old men. But anyway, it was very popular. But the criticism was, oh, look how they're behaving. And we often heard the word trash. And I would argue that the criticism had nothing to do with that. It's basically elitist. Now, why do I say that? I would never say people should watch the show, but I always defended it. And the reason I defended it is because the argument against it is elitist. Why? You can watch late night television, let's say, certainly in the States, and you have all these celebrities coming on. These beautiful people. They are wealthy, they are famous, and they are good looking, based on whatever the culture thinks is good looking. And they come on and talk about the exact same things we hear on these talk shows. They talk about who they slept with, what drugs they've been on, what misbehavior they had, and we can't buy enough tickets to their shows. We can't buy enough of their albums. We go to see their movies. We buy their books, and they talk in their interviews about the very same things. The newspapers are filled with stories about them. And we think they're godlike. And yet, if it's someone on television talking about the exact same subjects, except they're not wealthy, they're not necessarily good looking, they don't speak the Queen's English, and we call them trash. Think about it. That is elitist. The argument when our shows started coming on the air wasn't that, oh my gosh, I didn't know behavior like this existed. It was that we weren't used to seeing anyone on television unless they were upper middle class white. Now, most of what I say has to do with America, but I know enough about British television to say that it's somewhat similar over here as well. You turn on the television and basically everyone speaks the exact same way. There's nothing wrong with being upper middle class white, but it's not the only element of a society. It is not the full picture of our community. And by the way, we're all alike. I'll say it again. We're all alike. Some of us just dress better. Some of us had better luck in the gene pool of parents. Some of us were lucky enough to be born with a wonderful brain or better.
Hello and welcome back. Controversial talk show host Jerry Springer has died at the age of 79. He was best known for showcasing dysfunctional families on the Jerry Springer Show, which ran from 1991 until 2018 in the USA. Springer had stepped down from the Jerry Springer podcast after 8 years in December. Family spokesman Jane Galvin said in a statement, Jerry's ability to connect with people was at the heart of his success in everything he tried, whether that was politics, broadcasting, or just joking with people on the street who wanted a photo or a word. He's irreplaceable and his loss hurts immensely, but memories of his intellect, heart, and humor will continue to live on. Springer died peacefully at his home in Chicago after a brief battle with cancer. Chat show host Ulrike Lake, who described Springer as both her rival and a friend, was among those paying tribute. While sharing a picture on Twitter of the two of them on American competition show Drop the Mic on TNT, she said he was a lovely man. May his soul rest in peace. Before Springer's broadcasting career, which included stints as a political reporter and commentator, he was the mayor of one of the states in USA and a political campaign advisor to the US presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy. Springer was born in London Underground Station on February 13, 1944, while it was being used as a shelter during the war. He had fled from Germany to England during the war. Later on, he settled in the Queens Borough of New York City. Springer also had various unsuccessful runs for various political office, including Congress in 1970, and he ran adverts to campaign to become the governor of Ohio in the 1980s. The family has asked that in lieu of flowers, people should make a donation or an act of kindness to someone in need or a worthy advocacy organization in tribute to the way that Springer signed off his talk shows with the phrase, "Take care of yourself and each other." May his soul rest in peace.